Okay, thank you. So I'm Debra, the mom. This is Seth, my son. When Seth was 2, he was diagnosed with having autism. He had 148 IQ, but he doesn't talk much. And we had a real hard time. And I'm going to just put up one, just a picture. Oh, wait a second. Just something for you to look at while we're talking. That's Seth and Galapagos, so you know this has a happy ending. When he was 18, he had a 3-day formal vocational evaluation recommending a career in dry mopping. He was going to be a janitor, they said. I said, I will die first, and he will play Nintendo his entire life. Seth could play Nintendo holding the controls behind his back, which he did just for fun. When he was 20, he took his first art class, and when he was 23, he was on the Today Show as an artist. You were watching him paint the Red Horse, which is one of his very, very early paintings. Your art students, we live in Cleveland, where there's the Cleveland Institute of Art. The man speaking was Charlie Bergeron, who was one of our faculty, who has since passed away. And since Seth started painting in 2000, he has worked with 3 to 5 mentors every single week, all who are either art students or graduates from the Cleveland Institute of Art. None of these people are art therapists. They are artists who are interested in Seth's art and are willing to push their boundaries a little to communicate in a different way. And they are spectacular. And that is something that any of you could probably be very happy doing. I'll show you some pictures and then we'll talk a little more. I knew somebody in Cleveland who's a sculptor. He said, I'm trying to get a show in Canada so I can say I'm international. And Seth's first opening was in Galapagos. And he's wearing one of his T-shirts, and he's wearing one now. Seth loves wearing his T-shirts. They're sort of how he opens a conversation. So you'll see he's always wearing our T-shirt. This is a sea lion, but it's the eyes of our golden retriever, which I would know any place. These are groupers. Seth can do exceedingly realistic art and very fantastic art. This is the whale shark. So, there are all these issues with intellectual property. So Seth took a photograph of a bird and did a painting of it, and then I had to write to the photographer, Jonathan Green, we did this, can we show your painting? He said, absolutely, I'll send you more. So he sent us this photo, and it had 2 divers that were about this big because the whale shark is 40 feet long, and one of them was Jonathan Green. So Seth wrote him an email. Jonathan will not swim with whale shark. No biting the body parts. Seth with his turtles. Another one of the sea lion, again the same dog's eyes. Seth loves to paint for specific exhibitions. To come here to Fargo, he made 4 different portraits of White Cloud, the albino buffalo. And he was so excited to do that. Then we went to the National Gallery of the Cayman Islands. They were very excited about Seth's work, and he had a very long exhibition there. They had a whole wall about him, and they brought very large paintings to the exhibition. Seth loves to paint large. more of his turtles, and Seth in a Pegasus t-shirt. Fantasy octopi. This was maybe about the third or fourth painting Seth ever did. I don't know what happened, because he never drew a rainbow, he never drew a stick figure, he never drew a Thanksgiving turkey. He just never did anything, and then we sent him for an art class when he was 20, and it was like Botticelli's Venus coming out of the sea, springing up full-blown, or Athena came out of Zeus's head full-blown as an adult with all her armor on. Seth just knew how to paint. It was nobody taught him. It just was there. And that's so important, because at 18 they said janitor, and this is what he did at 20. He went to a 4-day oil class with a mentor, but he never had instruction. And he knew how to paint, and we didn't know that. And I wrote a book about us, An Unexpected Life. I get the title of the film and the book mixed up because they're both true. And I did that when I was 60, and I never wrote anything in my life and never considered it. So part of Seth is a story of never give up, and don't assume you know who you are. All the art students who have worked with Seth came in saying, I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. I can't. I said, well, give it a shot. And then they were doing it. So don't ever limit yourself. Don't ever think you know who you are and what you can do, because you have no idea what you can do. And that could be if you're 18 or 80. You could still do something amazing that you never dreamed of. This is Seth's self-study, number 1. It's on the cover of his book. And he did about 5 or 6 self-studies that size, just of his head. This is a triptych of Northern Lights. This was for Galapagos. It's the blue-footed boobies. And here are more of those real big paintings that came and was brought down to the Cayman Islands. This is an octopus. I think I have a close-up of it next. I'll tell you how Seth did this. First, he stood outside and splattered paint over the entire canvas. This canvas is probably 4 by 5 feet. Then he drew the octopus. Then, where there was not going to be the octopus, he put in the sea. So everything was originally the color of the octopus, just splattered. And then he painted the sea over it to bring it into relief, which has something to do with negative space that he is always able to see. And I'll try to come back to that and remember. Then he wanted to do the little suckers on the tentacles, and each tentacle, he did 2 tentacles in 8 hours. So Seth's perseverance is absolutely amazing. This is the triumph of OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder. Like, he can do what would make me absolutely insane. And he spent 2 days, so he spent 4 days just doing suckers on tentacles, and then he put in those incredible sleepy human eyes. Now, negative space. When Seth was about 4, he was in speech therapy, and the speech therapist gave him a black stamp pad and a triangle stamp and white paper. So Seth took it, and he da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and in the middle was a black star. Now, I could not do that. I'm sure all of you could do that. I could not do that. Then he took another piece of paper, and he was stamping And it looked to me, he's 4, it looks to me like he's stamping at random. When he finished, in the center was a white star. Like he figured out how to fill in the negative space so the only thing left would look like a star. And he did that at 4. And his teacher, his speech therapist, said, you know, there are a lot of graduate students in art who would not be able to do that. He just has that. It depends on what your mind is like. Seth has a mind that sees patterns. This is Seth with an eagle ray. Again, the obsessive-compulsive triumphs, because look at the detail in that, and he could spend hours and days. He doesn't care. He has no understanding of time or money or manipulation. He doesn't understand that. He did a painting with trees, and the trees were made up of geometric shapes, exquisite. I'm not talking triangles, I'm talking hexagons, octagons, crescents. I thought he'll make each one a different shade, and then you'll see it. He made it, he painted each one, he covered it up. He wanted hidden shapes under the trees. He does what he wants for art. So there's the eagle ray with all its details. This is a very big painting. Seth does a lot of these real big paintings. These are griffins, and Seth is mad about roller coasters. So where is Griffin?
Busch Gardens, Williamsburg.
Okay, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg announced they were going to have a coaster named Griffin in a year. Seth sprang into action. He went to Wikipedia, looked it up, half eagle, half lion. So he started doing griffins. Well, there's no real picture of a griffin, but he knew what they looked like. These are some of his tropical birds. We travel, and every time we travel, his painting explodes. Like even coming here, now he has 4 portraits of buffaloes. This is the whole team that brought us to Cayman. Here, Fraser brought us here. They have an entire team who has worked for 2 years to make this happen. So Sandy saw the book, read the book, called me up and said, will you come to North Dakota? I thought, North Dakota? She said, Fargo. I said, it's my favorite movie, we'll come. And it was a big deal. He was in the newspaper in Cayman, another newspaper in Cayman. And then we got invited to Curacao. There he is with a turtle that was, he had an exhibition at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, and they made turtle T-shirts. Again, Seth does big paintings. And very whimsical. Very whimsical. I don't know if that horse is pregnant or what, but they're great. What's the name of that horse?
The orange. What's the name horse? The 10 orange marmalade tangerine pinto fantasy horse.
The orange marmalade pinto fantasy horse. Seth is quite nonverbal. He has about 750 paintings. He names all his paintings and writes all his own artist statements. And he knows every single painting. Seth is very interested in alternative energy. And up there are those delightful, what's the top painting?
12 horses' faces.
12 horses' faces. What's this painting?
The abstract in oil with Christmas tree and a roller coaster.
This is the abstract in oil with Christmas tree and a roller coaster. Seth paints with oil. He almost sculpts with it. It's so thick sometimes it sticks out like a half of a hard-boiled egg. They take, I don't know, after a year they're not dry. And he loves roller coasters, and he's quite fond of Christmas.
Two fantasy dolphins. Two dolphin paintings.
Two dolphin paintings. When he went to Curacao, he swam with the dolphins. What's this?
What's the orange fantasy dolphin
In the night sky?
in the night sky?
Orange fantasy dolphin in the night sky. Mom knows a lot of the paintings, too.
The giant octopus and two sea turtles.
Giant octopus and two sea turtles.
Two iguanas.
Okay, now these two iguanas, this is not such a big painting. It's maybe this big, like 3 by 4 or 3 by 5 or something. And it took 250 hours. He did every single scale separately. And this was in Cayman. They have iguanas, and Seth likes to feed the bananas. And we collect bananas, and then he goes down and feeds them, and then sometimes he decides he'd rather eat the banana and fight sleep for the banana, because Seth really likes to eat also. But this was really an interesting painting. It took a very long time. I think that painting is at the, I think this painting is at the exhibition tonight, so you'll be able to see it. When we were invited to Curacao, usually we go, spend time, take photographs, do the paintings, and go back for an exhibition. So this was the Curacao waterfront. What is this?
Rocket Man #2.
This is Rocket Man #2. Seth painted this for Sir Elton John, who has never come by to pick it up. But it is a very beautiful Rocket Man, and I would say that this is where Seth either got involved with cooking a pot roast or invented string theory. But it's just absolutely amazing. I think it is string theory. Seth was very agitated about Pluto not becoming a planet anymore, and really wanted to make sure that Pluto was included in his painting.
The Galapagos and the Phoenix.
That's a phoenix and the Galapagos hawk, which now lives in Curacao. Then Seth was invited to, we go to all of his openings, but we did not go to this one. It was a group opening. It was in Kiev, the Museum of Modern Art of the Ukraine. But it was the first time he was ever in a museum that was art as opposed to natural history, so we were real excited. And those are two of his self-studies, and they're like the one I showed you earlier, and you can see with the people in front of them how large they are. And we were told they were very, very popular. People loved them. This is Seth's opus. This was at 55 Fifth Avenue in New York City for 18 months, and it's on the inside of his book. This is Manhattan Floating. It is 11 feet high. It is 26 feet long. It is comprised of 104 small paintings. It took about 2 years. It's New York the way Seth thinks it should be, with roller coasters and Ferris wheels, mythic creatures, dolphins, The Yellow Submarine. It is a very, very, very large painting. It almost killed the mother. That is Seymour Chwast, who's a third cousin of ours, who is quite an amazing artist in his own right. And this is just to show you the size and scale of the painting and us leaving it. That's Manhattan floating. One of the things I learned when we found out that we had a problem, I was just devastated. And for years we did art therapy, music therapy. No, we didn't do art therapy. We did music therapy and language therapy, searching for a cure. And back then they told you that you might converge, meaning pass for normal, and if so, it would happen by 12. After 12, we didn't know what we were going to do. And they were very hard times, but I figured there's me and Seth, and if he can't, I can't ask him, what am I going to say? I can't do it, you're out of luck. So whatever had to be done, I had to do it. And we never got a cure. We got a great life. And what I feel is that when you take somebody who's in a situation that is not going to change, and you bring them into a state of bliss, and you keep them in a state of bliss every day, that it does more for you than it does for them. I think this is very universal. I wrote a book, An Unexpected Life, about Seth. I could have written an identical book about my father, who moved in when he was 85 and lived with us the last 5 years of his life. The last year he was in hospice in our home. There's no good ending, but he was happy every single day of his life, and I made sure that happened. And Seth is happy. Coming to Fargo, you wouldn't believe how excited he is about this. He just couldn't, he's just was so psyched for 2 years because he was coming here. And that's, I think this is a universal issue. People who have a physical disability call us AB, able-bodied. But one of them said, no, you're TAB, temporarily able-bodied. Sooner or later, live long enough, walk on this earth long enough, you will lose vision, you will lose hearing, you will start limping. Things will happen. It could be 70, 80, or 90, but things will happen that put you in the category that I'm talking about. And what you want always is to know that when you make someone feel really, really good, it's really, really good for you. And, of course, it's really good for them. So Seth and I have a great life. And it's not that he's not autistic, and it's not that he can talk, and it's not that he can live independently. We didn't get that. But we got things I never dreamed of, and better than anything I could have dreamed of. So just never, ever think that your options are over or that you can't help somebody no matter what it looks like or how bad it looks. These are close-ups of Manhattan floating. As art students, I will tell you, Seth had studied CAD for 2 years. So he did a CAD drawing of Manhattan. His New York mentor, Kip, got 3 Pratt students, and they used a projector to transfer the CAD drawing onto 104 canvases, which the Pratt students cut out and gessoed and got readied. And then we numbered them in the back so we would have some idea of where each piece went. And then he painted 104 paintings. Okay, so he did this one. And whenever Seth does anything, we have it archived and photographed and just make sure we have it archived. We sent these 4 in, and we had them archived, which is not inexpensive. And then Seth did turtles with bubbles with crescents, and then he wanted crescents on these bubbles. So we went back and put a crescent on every single bubble for highlight, and we sent it back to be archived again. And then Seth wanted them outlined in black. So he outlined every single bubble in black, and then we sent it back. And then, thank God, that was the last adjustment on these 4 paintings. But we let him do what he wants. Seth thinks every city should have roller coasters. These are the dolphins in the East River. That's the Yellow Submarine. Seth is a big Beatles fan. Seth, what is this?
The red giant sea turtle.
And
26 sea turtles.
the 26 sea turtles, he was 26 when he did this, now he's 31. He was very clear these were not small baby turtles, they were faraway turtles. So it's 26 faraway turtles. The sea turtle is the same size as the entire financial district of New York, but that's okay. That's how he wants it. Seth did cutouts because there were things he couldn't get in the painting that he felt were part of New York. So these are wooden cutouts that hang in front of the mural. I think there are about 105 of them. This is Seth at his opening at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. This is a mural that it's quite big. You can see with the people in front of it how big it is. That's one of Seth's mentors. And the museum built a wall in the lobby so that they could feature it the way they wanted to feature it. This was a mythic creature exhibition, and Seth did all these mythic creatures. He does sculptures. This is what is this?
The chupacabra sculpture.
So, you know, these are just filled with joy and color, and every animal is smiling, and every animal has human eyes. What's this one?
2 fancy griffins on a Valentine's Day sky.
2 fantasy griffins on a Valentine's Day sky. Isn't that lovely? And it lives in San Francisco now. What's this? This is a griffin sculpture. Now, Seth was in a worldwide competition at the United Nations to, the winner would have a stamp, a United Nations stamp, and Seth came in #1 in the world. And here we are at the United Nations where they brought the octopus and a few other paintings in for the one from Kiev. What we really did was bring in everything from New York so we didn't have to pay for shipping. There I am, we're getting an award. There's Seth with his award. Here we were at the United Nations. I called and said, when is it? When do we come? And I got something. I wish I had a way to save it, but my answering machine said, we do not have the schedule of the Secretary General yet. As soon as we have that schedule, we'll let you know. And everybody in the front row was an excellency. And everybody who spoke said, thank you, Your Excellency, and Your Excellency, and Your Excellency. Gandhi's granddaughter was there. It was just absolutely amazing. So that's Seth. And the stamp was the far right panel of the Mythic Creature mural. That's what they picked for the stamp. There it is. Now, that is Seth with Gordon Clapp. I don't know if any of you watch NYPD Blues, but he was the detective who was in love with the ditzy blonde, and he and Seth became very good friends, and they go to each other's openings. The fashion editor sent models to our home to get photos in front of Seth's art. What painting is that?
red-orange fantasy horse.
That's the red-orange fantasy horse. This is a, I don't know, it's not a triptych, it's 4, whatever a 4 is.
Cayman, if you're painting, the fishes and the sea turtles.
These were 4 paintings that later on became the 4 big paintings that were in Cayman. So one had sea turtles, one had a big fish, but this is before he finished them. Who's that?
The green apple pinto fantasy horse.
That's the green apple pinto fantasy horse. And that is
Self-study number 1.
That's self-study number 1. Rough and smooth, is it? This is rough and smooth as an aurora of northern lights. This painting took 96 hours. What's that?
Red fantasy horse number 1.
Red fantasy horse number 1.
People swirls.
People swirls. This horse you already saw. This bird you saw. This is a self-study about 5 feet by 6 feet. Seth did about 20 of these paintings on, they're 24 by 48 on board with just these ridiculous chicken legs. They're just amazing. That's the apple green that you saw already. Who's this?
The yellow-green fantasy horse.
This is the yellow-green fantasy horse. This is incredible. He has green eyes. I'm going to just flip through quickly. When Seth wants to go someplace, he does paintings of it till I give up and take him. So this is Seth working me for Venice. There was going to be a show in Trinidad. It got canceled. Everything had to be on paper to make it cheap to bring it. So this is an oil on paper, which is unusual. This is just to show how thick his oil paintings are. These are the hard-boiled eggs sticking out. Water. This is a massive painting. It doesn't photograph well. That's a study for a sea turtle, self-study. He's done many architectural drawings of New York. I think some are there tonight. Seth has been on the cover of 5 medical textbooks. This was his first one. This was another one. This is a design he made for Chamberfest Cleveland that then went on the T-shirt, and he's wearing the next year one. So this was the first year, the bang. And that's it. So that ends with a bang. And if anybody has questions, we'll take questions. And yes?
Have you ever started and not finished one, or are you always completing them, starting and then going all the way to completion?
He has never not finished a painting, but Seth works only with mentors. He has never painted on his own, and I think it's because the painting is how he talks. It's his communication, and he likes it when the person on the other end gets excited. And he knows if you're an artist. He just knows immediately. So he won't draw in front of me because it doesn't mean anything if I get excited. Or anybody who he knows who's a friend, he won't draw in front of them. I took him to a print class at the museum, and he was the only special needs person there, and he did a horse, and it was purple with a green mane. And everyone in the class was saying, "Oh my God, oh my God," and he was in ecstasy because he knew they knew. So he won't paint by himself, but he'll paint only with a mentor. Then, with each mentor, he has themes. So if he's going to Cayman or Galapagos, he knows what he's painting. But before we traveled, one mentor, he never met her. And I said, what are you going to do with Alexis? He said, night sky, aurora borealis, moon, shooting star. And that's the only thing he would do with her. And with another mentor at the same time, he was doing whales. And another mentor, he was doing hands. So if it was Monday and it was whales, he'd work on his whale painting. Then Tuesday, he'd go to his hand painting. So he doesn't start the whale and he has to finish the whale. If he has a different project, he'll go with a different mentor to switch projects, but he never didn't finish the painting. And he's also not afraid of the paintings. Like we have one painting that's 6 feet by 10 feet. And they took a room in our house, they took all the furniture out, and they put it on the floor. And he just sat in the middle of it and started to paint. And the mentor said she would be terrified. She wouldn't even know how to, she'd have so much anxiety about starting. And what am I going to do with the canvas this size and how will it come out? Nothing. He just sat down on the canvas and started to paint. Yes?
So earlier you mentioned he's done 4 of the buffalo.
Yes.
Did that start with some local mentor?
That started with Sandy from Fraser telling us that North Dakota had a white buffalo named White Cloud and that he was very special. So Seth went online, and then Sandy also sent us photographs of him. But when Seth is interested, he just goes online, and the things he looks up just kill me. Like, he'll take a city and look for the 10 tallest buildings. Like, who cares? But he cares. So when he found out about White Cloud, he just Googled and looked at photo after photo after photo. He really cared about White Cloud. And then he did 4 different portraits. We only have 1 here, but he did 4. Yes?
What was the decision process like, or what led you to start the painting class in the first place?
What led me to start what?
Going to the painting class.
Oh, I was certain that Seth had a talent that we just hadn't discovered. And he was very bright. So I figured, let's just go looking. So all his life I looked. And especially during the summer, when there was nothing, structured to do, we tried cake decorating, gift wrapping, horseback riding, skiing, ice skating, code breaking. He was superb at breaking codes. But would the CIA hire him? How do I know, And what would he? So we just tried everything. And that summer, I did 3 things. I sent him to ballroom dancing, which you saw in the video. I sent him to an interpretive dance class, and I sent him to an art class. They were absolutely random, like I had done his entire life, just searching for what it would be. He did exceedingly well at ballroom dance because his musical skills are equal or better than his art skills. So because he could hear the rhythm perfectly, he was very good. He danced for 2 years. He danced competitively, but only with his teacher, and he would win competitions, but only with his teacher. He stopped at the level because there's a level where you have to flirt with the audience, and he couldn't figure that out at all. But just for the correct, how do you do a perfect tango, he could do that, but flirting with the audience was beyond him. So the art was just random. And after he came home the first day, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I saw. I thought, maybe this is it. And I had a friend who's an architect and a really good artist. And Seth did a charcoal painting. And Michael looked at it. He said, okay, I'm going to go home and kill myself. He said, I can't believe that's what he did day 1. He said, I can't do anything like that. So it was me never giving up and me being certain that there was something he could do. We would just find out what. And there are lots of things he can do. They just have no visible value. But I cherished him anyhow for doing them. Yes? Okay, we started music therapy when he was 2. And the issue with Seth, we live 2 doors down from our first clarinetist who does Chamberfest, which is these things. So Franklin came over when Seth was 8. And at 8 years old, you could play a chord, and Seth would turn around so he couldn't see, and he'd say augmented G7. I can't hear. And he'd say augmented G7. So Franklin did a few chords, and Seth would name them. And then he hit 3 notes that were not a chord, like just hit them, and Seth sang the 3 notes. And then he had 4 notes that were not a chord, just for a second, and Seth sang the 4 notes. And then I said to him, I think Seth has perfect pitch. At that time, our conductor was Dakota, and he said, this is not perfect pitch. Dakota cannot do what Seth is doing. He said, this is beyond, way beyond. Is he composing yet? Well, actually, Seth had written some songs, but I'm not very musical, and we sent him to music twice a week. That's all. At a certain point, in his 20s, there was a computer program that we got at the music school where you would compose. And his music therapist told me that Seth was born knowing how to compose. He composes in his head on the computer without hearing it. Like when Beethoven was deaf and he could still write, he composes without hearing it. She said arranging took her about 10 minutes to teach him how the concept of the violins do this and the cello does that. She said that wasn't innate to him, but she said composing was innate. So I said, how good is he? And she said, well, he does music composition about an hour a week, and he paints about 40 hours a week. If you changed it, he could probably be a prodigy. But at 1 hour a week, it's just really amazing. But it's not, So when I said it's not saleable, he can go to a concert, and we go with people who are very sophisticated in music. Not me. I'm not. And then we'll say, which was the best? And he always knows which was the best performance, of the 3 that night. I'm talking about classical at the orchestra. Or if there was an opera, which is the best singer. He can hear, his hearing is impeccable. You can go to the bank on it. If he says it's this, it's this. But he's not going to be a piano tuner. He's not going to go into people's homes and do business. And he's got his art. But he is very, very good at music. At hearing it. Yes? Yes! That's so interesting. This is what happened. He never would fall asleep. He just wouldn't fall asleep. He's a little kid. We're supposed to go to bed at 9. I'd lie down with him 11 o'clock. And so, okay. So one time I thought, I'm going to teach him to count by 25. And I tried for weeks. And how could you not get count by 25? And he has 148 IQ. So I thought maybe he can't do math. So I'm doing it over and over and over again. And then one day we're lying there in the dark, and he counts by 25. He says to me, count by 17. Well, I can't. So he starts counting by 17. I run, I get a light, a pencil and paper, I write it down, I get out the calculator. He could then count by anything. It's like it took him a long time to get the concept, but once he got the concept, you'd say count by 34. And he just took off. So he really, really, really understands numbers in a different kind of way. And again, I'm not a number person. If he was living with a mom, like if he was living with Franklin, he'd probably be a world-class musician. But in our house, that didn't happen. If he was the son of a mathematician, who knows? But numbers are alive for him. And also, there's a guy who's working on a project, and I don't know what will come of it, but he's a very, very brilliant guy, and he has told me things about Seth that I don't have enough math to understand. So he says Seth has the golden ratio, whatever that is, inside him. And he'll take paintings and draw out the rectangular forms inside the painting. He says Seth nails it every single time. And the other thing he did, that painting of the iguana that you saw, the two iguanas, Greg photographed it. He took it out in our driveway and photographed it, moving further and further away. So pointillism looks, you're up close, you see dots. You step back 15 feet and you see people in a boat. At 250 feet, the iguanas turn natural. They look green and they look like they have ribs. At 250 feet, it resolves. And Seth is doing something or knows something that makes that happen. And the other thing is he has something called tiny walking horses. You can see it in the book. He calls it 100 tiny walking horses. And it's horses in 4 different colors. One day I started to count. I got up to 740 and I stopped. The painting's about this big. They're tiny little horses. Greg took out everything but the blue. And he said they were 100% random, which is statistically impossible. He said you cannot, that the human brain is so wired to make patterns. And he is working on Seth's art, and he's had about 10 different theories. It's on a slideshow someplace, but I'm not good at that kind of thing, and it's not finished. But there were 10 different principles. He said, Seth, it wasn't pi, it wasn't, maybe it was logarithms. He said he does them naturally. So this is a guy, a scientist, who knows math and knows science and has these concepts, and he can prove that they're in Seth's work. It was just staggering. And I'm not educated enough to understand anything Greg says, but he's working on a slideshow too. So you're right. The math is real big inside Seth. Thank you for asking that. Well, thank you so much for coming. I know you had other things you could be doing today. His books are over there if you want to look at them. If anyone wants to buy one, he loves to sign them. And tonight, the exhibition is free and open to the public with light food. So you can come to that. And thank you so much. Thank you.